Hey everyone, it's Debra Eckerling here. I'm author of Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals, and founder of the Deb Method, and of course, Goal Chat and Goal Chat Live. I'm very excited today because we get to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is productivity. And because Goal Chat, which is my Sunday night Twitter chat, is all about helping people share wins, set goals, and really just connect and stay motivated. So today on Goal Chat Live, I have my friend, author, and co-panelist, because we met at an online writers conference earlier this year, Sean McLachlan. And Sean, please introduce yourself
Hello.
better than I just did.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a full-time writer, have been for 20 years. I was an archaeologist before that and worked all over the Middle East and Europe. And then I shifted briefly into journalism, didn't really like that so much, although I learned a lot from it. And got into travel writing, magazine, freelancing, and now most of my living is made as a novelist, both my own work and as a ghostwriter.
And so, before we jump into the topic, you write a lot.
Mhm.
Like a lot, a lot.
Yeah,
Have you
I average
been
about 20,000 words a week. Although with lockdown, I've been doing more than that because there's nothing else to do. So nothing like boredom to help your productivity.
right? Well, in one of your books is Writing Secrets of the Most Prolific Authors.
Yeah, yeah, writing secrets of the world's most prolific authors. I wrote that as sort of a push for myself. I'd always liked all these old style writers, especially the pulp era writers who wrote a million words a year or more. And so I decided to research their lives and look at articles they wrote about writing. And it took a lot of research because I had to dig through writing magazines from the 30s and that sort of thing. But it was a lot of fun. And I found a lot of things that these people had in common. And I wrote up a dozen of them for this book. And also looked at their techniques and how their careers went. And if you got in my book, you had to have written at least 300 books in your lifetime to make it. But with various people like Max Brand, Isaac Asimov, Barbara Cartland, John Creasy, those sort of people, Enid Blyton. Isaac Asimov was actually the least productive writer that made it into. He almost didn't make the cut, and you know how
Wow.
much he wrote. Yeah, so
Okay, and so what is your magic number?
uh, of
How
books I've
much have you
written.
written? Yeah, books.
Uh, Let me think here. I've written, oof, I think it's over 60 books now. That includes ghostwriting. So if you go onto my Amazon page, you're not going to see that. You're going to see half of that. But I wrote 7 military history books for Osprey Publishing. I wrote 3 state histories about Missouri. I've written a couple of guidebooks. I wrote a book on medieval history and the Byzantine Empire, and then a bunch of novels. I just finished a novel that's going through edits right now, the fourth in my Cairo mystery series. So a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Which is good because even though you're on lockdown, you don't get bored.
No. I've been using lockdown as writing as sort of a coping mechanism for lockdown. I am reading more, of course, and Netflix is my friend. As it is everybody's friend right now. You know,
Right.
not every business is suffering in lockdown, but yeah, I've been filling my days with work. It's just a way to get through, and when it's all done, I'm gonna earn myself a nice vacation. So
Woohoo! Okay,
yes.
sounds good. Well, you must be going nuts because you normally travel a lot too.
I do. I usually go up with my family to Oxford over Easter, and that didn't happen. I had a trip planned to Tunisia, and that didn't happen. We're probably getting to Oxford this summer. It's looking positive now. So
And you're
yeah,
in
I
Madrid.
missed
Did
a
we
lot.
mention that?
Yes, yeah. I'm in Madrid. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here, but I forgive you.
And,
So
well, you're a
it's
writer, so there should be
yes,
like, oh,
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's yeah. I divide my time between Madrid, England, and North Africa, so I'm kind of all over the map.
well, thank you so much for staying up late, even though you probably
No
be up
problem.
late
Thanks for having
anyway.
me. Yeah.
And okay, so I'm gonna start with I want to go through the questions from Gold Chat last night, and I also put the link to the recap from the tweets. And we had a lot of people chiming in on productivity, which is great. It's
Cool.
something everybody has an opinion about it. And it's, one of my favorite things to talk about, since I'm all about goal setting and, getting things done, right? And so tell me, how do you track and or measure productivity?
Well, I have a weekly goal. I'll have a yearly goal first off, which is 1,000,000 words a year. And what you do whenever you have a big project, you break it down into smaller things, right? So 1,000,000 words a year is 20,000 words a week, every week, for 50 weeks, which leaves you 2 weeks where you don't have to do anything, where you can catch up if you have a slow week. So 20,000 words a week. Okay, that's not so bad. That's less than 3,000 words a day. Now it's not so scary, and that's how you do it. So I just keep a running tally every week, and if you look on my blog, you can see a running tally of my yearly word counts, and also on various projects. I don't show all my projects on that because I only put my books under my name. Ghostwritten projects are different. I don't list the magazine articles or anything like that. So, but it it gives me something to latch onto, and know how far I'm getting. And one of the things that I have always done, and this is quite common among prolific authors, is I have several different projects at a time. When I was researching the book, I discovered that there's basically two types of prolific authors. There is the type who only writes one genre, or virtually only writes one genre, like Max Brand with his westerns, or Georges Simenon, who mostly wrote mysteries, or Barbara Cartland with romances. And they would write one at a time. They'd write it, they'd finish, they'd write, finish, and just do it like that. But there was a bigger group who wrote in all sorts of genres and would have several projects going at the same time, like Walter Gibson, who you might remember, the old pulp hero, The Shadow, who was this sort of magician crime fighter, vengeful crime fighter. Well, he wrote that. But he also wrote a lot for newspapers. He had several newspaper columns going at the same time about true crime or mystery, that sort of thing, or magic, because he was a stage magician. So he had the sideline of, he would like write a few thousand words and then go and do a magic show and come back and write another thousand, then go to bed, and so he had this wide variety of things that he's writing, and he had several projects going at a time. And that's what I do. For example, today, I worked on a novella, which is the final piece for a story collection I'm doing for my post-apocalyptic series. I edited I started to edit the fourth in my Cairo mystery series, and I also worked on a ghostwriting project, which is urban fantasy. I can't talk more about that because it's ghostwriting. So that's what I did today. I also worked on the blurb for my Cairo book. But I also have another project that I'm doing at the moment, but didn't do today, which is a military history for another client. So a little bit of everything.
Well, at least even though you're locked up, you're not bored.
Yes.
Which is what it's.
Yeah.
And also think about it, though. You get to travel to all these different worlds that you created. So even though you're at home, you're everywhere.
Yeah. Although, working through my Cairo book, it just made me miss Cairo more, because I'm usually there twice a year, and it's going to only be once a year this year if I'm lucky. It might not even be that. But having these different projects means that you can switch over. Like, for example, for my ghostwriting project, I was humming along for the last couple of weeks. I was doing an average of 1,500 words a day on it. And then I sort of got slowed down a bit, and I was only doing 1,000 words a day on it and doing stuff for other projects, and that was fine. And then Saturday came, and I got up, it's like, okay, I better work on this project. And I was like, okay, I'll edit. So I edited all day. And that's a different portion of the brain, and my creativity on Saturday morning just was not there. And so I just switched over and worked on editing. And I got a ton of work done, but let one half of my brain rest. And a
Yeah,
lot of more prolific authors than I do this as well.
well, and you're talking about word count, and if you're doing 20, 30,000 words a week, and then you look at National Novel Writing Month, which is 50,000 words in 30 days, it's like, I can do that in 2 weeks. That's like easy. But I
Yeah, but
really,
most people doing nano have day jobs. So
right.
this is my day job. So it's not a very fair comparison. But these techniques work for anybody, even if you only have a spare hour a day.
Well, you and I are definitely in agreement in that if you need to steal time to work on your projects to keep them moving forward, then that's what you do. You have to really figure out what works for you and then do more of that.
Hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
And every writer is different. You have to look for whatever technique works for you. Um, that's why I found a whole bunch of different techniques in the book and sort of laid them all out, because not these prolific writers that I looked at, they overlapped in their techniques, but they also had their own little quirks, and so you just have to sort of pick and choose what's right for you. But in the end, it's work ethic. In the end, it's sitting down and doing the job. So.
And most people are writers because they love to write or they are
Oh yes.
compelled to write. So that's another extra like bonus motivation to
Oh
keep going.
sure,
It's like
sure.
you're not a writer on purpose. You're a writer because it's kind of your calling. You have something to say. You are driven.
Yes, and
Right.
what I've found is that the more you write, the easier it gets. That it doesn't scare me anymore to say, well, I need to write 3,000 words tomorrow. That used to be terrifying, because I mean, every prolific writer started as a non-writer. You know, we all started with a daily word count of 0 and worked our way up from there. And we all did it by writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. This is
Okay.
where journalism comes in. It was a good training ground. You know, it's like,
I
oh, you have to get an article written, you know, you need 800 words by an hour from now, and it has to be accurate, and it has to be reasonably clean copy, or you're fired. So,
I remember when I was in journalism school, I had this great feature writing class on Tuesday mornings at 9. And I would start, I guess I was in training for later because I would always start on Monday, like around noon. I'm like, okay, here's an idea and I'll go figure it out. And then as I got faster, I would start at 3. And I think toward the end of the course, I'd be starting my articles at like 8 o'clock at night, which, because it would get done. I just kept shortening the lead time. I'd write my draft, go to sleep, wake up, edit, print it, because it was back when printers took like forever,
oh yeah, I
and ran
remember
to
that.
class.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was my system. Of course, it never occurred to me to start early, finish early, and get a good night's sleep because hey, college.
No,
But
of course not.
it was kind of fun watching that progression to see, you know, as you get better, as you get more interested, writing's like working out. The more you do it, the better you become. But it's not just, since we have people who are not writers who listen, I feel like we should also say, if it's your passion project, if it's your hobby, if it's your side hustle, even if you're working on it a little bit a day, it'll all add up.
Oh yes.
And
Oh yes.
in the tip that I want to add for tracking and measuring productivity is I love to-do lists. Anybody who knows me knows this, because if you write things down, you don't have to waste space in your brain trying not to forget things. But the other reason for it is then at the end of the week, you can like check things off. I always say check them off, don't cross them out, because you want like proof. So at the end of the week or the end of the month, you're like, oh, I wasn't that productive. But you can take a look and say, oh, I did this, this, and this.
Oh yeah.
Yay me.
Crossing something off of a list is a great dopamine hit, and I've gotten into a rather ridiculous habit where if I have a daily list and a weekly list, and if I do something that wasn't on my list, I'll actually write it and then cross it off immediately, because it gives me the dopamine hit, you know, and why not? So you just have to keep at it, though. That's the key. Is the number one piece of advice for anybody in any creative field is just got to keep at it, and keep doing it. Like I know a couple professional actors, and they got there by constantly going out for cattle calls and trying to get in plays and trying to get in movies, and while hustling tables or whatever, until they got there. And same with people in bands. How many hours do they practice before they play in some little club, some dingy little club where there's more people in the band than there are in the audience, and then they work their way up from that.
Okay, well, you already answered this, but I'm going to put it in the chat if anybody wants to chime in, and you can answer it again because we know your answer, which is, have you been more or less productive lately? And I think you've already answered that you've been much more, which is good. Has it been helping you, like, just stay focused
definitely.
and sane, etc.?
Yeah. Because I could have gone two ways with this whole lockdown, which is I could have griped about missing out on a couple of trips, and griped about the whole spring art season in Madrid disappeared. So there's a lot of good shows coming up which I didn't get to see. A lot of hikes I didn't get to go on. A lot of friends I didn't get to go to restaurants with. I could dwell on that, or I could just put the head down and get to work and get stuff done, to free myself up for when I am able to do all that stuff.
That's really the right way to look at it. One thing that I've been telling people is, if you used to commute and you don't commute, now you have like a little extra time. What can you do during that time when you normally would be in the car trying to get somewhere? It's another way to find like lost time and put it into your advantage.
A really good trick for productivity, as you just pointed out, is finding little bits of time. I really learned this when I had a kid, and of course, when you have an infant in the house, that it takes over, of course. But my wife is a scientist, and she went back to work after 3 months, and so we got daycare, which was terrifying. And because she worked across town and the daycare was just down the street, it was me dropping him off and picking him up. Fair enough. Which meant that I had a little segment of time when he was at daycare to work. And otherwise, maybe I'd luck out and he'd take a nap and I could write. But otherwise, I'm with an infant in the house. So as soon as I drop him off at daycare, beeline back home and work like crazy, because that was my time. And I learned to get my work done in a small chunk of time, and just kept at it. And then that time widened as he started going to school and had his own friends and his own social life.
And your son's how old, just to give a little
14.
context?
Yeah, he's 14 now. Yeah. So this has been going on for a while. So yeah, he has his own life now. Of course, he's got judo, and he's goes out to see his friends and that sort of thing. So, of course, he's doing none of that now.
But let's say you have all the time in the world. So how do you stay productive then when you don't have when you have large chunks of time?
Well, fill them. So do more, write more projects. And I always enjoy having several projects going at a time, because that way you can, not only can you rest one part of your brain and go off to something else, like, oh, I'm sick of writing this history, or just sick of writing this travel article, I'm going to go do some fiction. But you can also express yourself in different ways. You might have sort of an angry or rebellious novel, or something that's a bit lighter, and you just work on whatever fits your mood, deadlines permitting.
Okay, well, that's a great lead-in to the next question. And anybody who's watching wants to chime in on how you stay productive, and if you're more or less productive, please just reply, comment, etc. And then that really brings us to question 4, which is, how do you stay productive, especially when you get stuck or life gets in the way? And one of the tricks I like is what we were just talking about. Set a timer for 15 minutes and like force yourself to work for 15 minutes. And when the timer goes off, you're either on a roll and you keep going, or you're like, I did my time. I can keep going.
Yeah. Well, sometimes life does get in the way. I mean, when you have a newborn in the house, I mean, there are different priorities. Writing isn't the only important thing, obviously. It's usually the most important thing, but not always. But sometimes life does get it. Sometimes you're sick. or sometimes a loved one is sick. Luckily, I've gotten through this coronavirus thing without any of my loved ones getting sick. That's good. So you just but if some serious life issue comes, deal with that. It's okay. You want to make sure you don't make excuses for not writing, but some excuses are valid. Yeah. But at the same time, writing can be really helpful. I've known people who wrote through cancer. I knew a woman who wrote a whole book while she was getting chemo, and she'd get chemo and then she'd be really feeling horrible, so she wouldn't write for a few days, and then she'd start feeling better, and then she'd write more, and then work her way up, and then chemo would come again, and but she wrote a whole book that way, and it really helped her. It was a good book too.
Well, so you're not just, when you're stuck, if it's for a good reason, you need to kind of like go with it, right?
Yeah.
And and I'm a huge fan of journaling, and we do have journaling coming up as a topic in a few weeks, is especially right now, if you have anxiety, journal. Get all that anxiousness and the stress out of your body by putting pen to paper, and that's going to be a lot. That's going to take a weight off of you that you're not going to realize until you do it, how much better, how much more light you'll feel.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. And I don't journal actually, but there's little bits of me in all my novels, so you can express various aspects of my personality or past or whatever through that. And that's it's therapy. Oh yeah, definitely. I think all writers write partially out of therapy.
I always see that, what is it? Be nice to me. I'm a writer. You could
Yeah,
end up
yeah.
as a
But it's
villain
it's a
or a
good way.
victim.
It's a good. I mean, it sounds like a bit obvious, but it's a good way to express yourself. And it is though, because we have all this social media and we have all these ways of communicating, but our society actually discourages us from expressing ourselves. Social media isn't about self-expression, it's about this sort of veneer. And you see on, like Facebook's the worst, about how people go into camps, and everyone has to have this ideology, or you're in this other camp with this other ideology. And there's actually, I think, there's less self-expression in the age of social media than there was before. But with fiction, or with memoir, or all sorts of other types of work, you can break out of that and say what you want to say.
I will agree with you mostly,
Mm-hmm.
but that's partly why I have my group too. And if you're watching and you're not already a member, please jump on over and join Write On Online, because the whole purpose of that is to help people be themselves and share
Mm-hmm.
their wins so we can encourage each other. So whereas there is a lot of toxic social media, find your tribe, find your people, and that will also be helpful. And then also write.
Yes. Yeah, well, I'm very lucky that we have a long-running writers group here in Madrid that's been going on for more than 20 years. I am currently the oldest member. I've been in it for 15. I didn't found the group, but and it's good. It's gone through ups and downs and massive changes in membership. I No one who was there when I joined is still permanently in Madrid, although some people pass through. But it's a good group, and we meet on Zoom twice a week since the lockdown, because we're not going to go into some crowded cafe. Well, we're not even allowed. So,
Right.
but I canceled meetings earlier than lockdown, because I was like, nah, this doesn't feel safe. But it's really helpful too, and it's a good group of people at the moment, so it's a big plus.
Well, and so finding your people, even if it's real life online
Mm.
versus, and I have a friend who was telling me that her husband has meetings online every day, and the people she works with don't like to talk, and they just
Mm.
message. And there's just such a big difference when you're like actually communicating, even if it's once a week, to find a group to jump into so you feel less alone. I think
Oh
that's
yeah,
super
I
important.
think it's essential. Yeah, definitely. And we've done uh, Zoom chats with friends across town and overseas, and everything like that. I think everyone should be doing that right now. I think it really helps. It's I'm looking forward to getting out of lockdown though. So
Well, I'm sure you are not the only one.
no, I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so we're going on to the next question. Oh, before we do that, so I want to add one more thing to the how do you stay productive question, which is I think you need to celebrate your wins.
oh yes, definitely.
Because that you talk about the dopamine rush for like checking off something is done. What about like completing something like a
Well, that's a
draft or an outline or a blog post? Doesn't matter what it is you're celebrating. Maybe you sent a pitch letter that you've been like meaning to do, but you haven't, or you updated your website. Every little win counts.
oh
And since
yes,
I can't physically give gold stars, consider this like I'm giving virtual gold stars to anybody who's listening. You did something great,
and
it
keep
should be
at it. Definitely.
celebrated.
Yeah. And what I'd add to that is keep going at it. One neat trick to do: as soon as you type the end on your novel or your article, your short story, whatever happens to be, immediately open up another document, write the title, write by whoever you are, and write the first sentence. You only have to write the first sentence or even the first word, but you've started. So you're not between projects, because that could be fatal, because that can get you sort of, chilling out and not working. But if you've started another one, that helps. And that's a good way to deal with rejection from editors, is know what your next market's going to be. So if you get rejected for an article pitch or a short story, um, immediately send it to the next market on the list, because then you're not rejected, you're under consideration.
I I think the Hollywood line is you should always have various projects at multiple stages of development. And I think that counts for everything. And part of the reason that I do what I do is, maybe you have a day job that you don't love, but if you can carve out a little time for that side hustle, which is your passion, and you have joy there, it doesn't matter that you have some drudgery in what gets you paid. You have joy elsewhere, and hopefully that will leak over, or maybe it will lead to something fantastic so you can have that as your side hustle can become your day job or your career or
Yeah.
your passion.
And that will carry you for a while, because with writing, you're not going to get to quit your day job for a while. It took me years to transition, where I'd be working full time and writing a bit on the side, and then I could get down to three-quarters time and write more, and transition out of that. And yeah, it was years, but it really helped that I was seeing progress, that I was getting stuff done, I was getting things accepted, and I was moving forward. And of course, I got plenty of rejection early on, but things improved, and I got there. And it's really encouraging. That's another reason to be productive, is because the more you get out there, the quicker you'll get where you want to go. Because I don't know any field that rewards productivity more than the creative fields. Whether you're a painter or a dancer or a musician or whatever you do, you just got to do a lot of it, and that will get you, because it's so competitive, and the odds are so terrible that you really got to keep going at it.
What did I say about this being positive
Oh, sorry.
reinforcement?
Sorry. No, but it is. I mean, the odds are terrible, but the way to succeed is just doing a lot of what you love.
that that's the thing,
Did I
because
redeem
when you're
myself?
doing, yes, you totally did,
Good.
because when you are doing a lot of what you love, it breeds more productivity. It's when you're working on one sort of project, and then even if you get a little positive reinforcement, even if it's like I wrote this and this was cool and I'm excited so I'm going to keep going, then that's the goal. Do the things that make you happy, that make you want to keep doing it, and
Oh
then
yeah.
keep going.
Yes. And having a lot of irons in the fire really helps. I know an artist, that's not her full-time job. She works in a halfway house, actually. So she's got a very useful job that she doesn't want to quit, because it's rewarding for her, and certainly rewarding for her patients. But she does a lot of painting. She does clay. She does sculpture. and she's always working on something. And you go over to her house and she's talking and painting at the same time. And then you begin to look around and realize that this whole house is filled with her stuff. She gave me a coffee and I'm drinking it from a glass that she just put through a kiln, and it's like the table was carved by her and the paintings over the couch are all by her. And, I got stuff in my house from her and all my friends have stuff in their houses from her. It's just, she's done so much. That's because she's constantly doing it while dealing with drug addicts 40 hours a week.
Okay, so you jumped into question 3 or question 5, which is question 3 before I asked it. But when we do goal chat, question 1 and 2 are, what was your biggest win? What are your goals for the week? So we just kind of jump over that for Goal Chat Live. But so what tips do you have for those who want you to be more productive? You just said it. Just keep doing it.
Yes. Right? And fill up spare corners of your day. Because there's a lot of little bits of time. I know a couple of English teachers here in town in Madrid teaching English to Spaniards, and they have to zigzag all through town on the metro. Well, they did until lockdown, and a lot of them work on their material as they're in the metro because it's boring, and they might be on the metro for 20 minutes. So that's 20 minutes of work, and then it's 20 minutes back to the next class, and they can get a lot of writing done in that time. Or, as I said before, my kid comes back from school, we hang out for a bit, and then he's got to do his homework, so I work a bit more. Then he's going to have a shower, I work a bit more, and then we have dinner together.
Just
those little bits of time. Yeah.
And if you're not a writer, if your passion is like a creative pursuit, if you're an artist, if it's not something you can just do for 20 minutes, you can still spend that 20 minutes writing a blog post, writing a pitch, planning, writing more to-do lists and checking things off. There's always something, I think, that can be done that can help move you forward.
Oh, yes, definitely. Because there's a whole business side too. And everybody gets this, not just writers, but painters and actors. I mean, actors just fire off 1 million emails a day, and they're constantly searching for work and emailing producers and all that, directors and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, there's a lot of the sort of busy work that comes along with this. Oop, I disappeared. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Can you see me? Oh, I'm back.
Yes, I can see you.
I disappeared to myself.
You went at such warp speed. I didn't even know you were gone.
Oh, okay.
No, I went superhero.
I went all dark. It was crazy. I expressed my dark side.
And this was at this point in the chat last night is when I was expressing what you said earlier, which is having more than one project. That way you can always be productive on something. You can always be moving forward on something. And I love it, what you were saying before. It could be a bunch of different things, or it could be certain aspects of the same thing. It's really what's going to make you feel good and feel like you've spent worthwhile time moving forward on whatever it is that your project is.
Yeah, and sometimes people will carve out time to just do only that thing, like Georges Simenon, who was this hugely popular Belgian mystery writer. He did the Magritte series and a bunch of other mystery novels. He was popular in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and became a multimillionaire from his work. And what he would do, he was one of these one genre, one book at a time folks. He would set aside 10 days and write his mystery novel and do nothing else. And then he'd take a few days off and hang out with his family or go to Paris or whatever it happened to be. And then he'd do it again and again and again and again.
Find your system, see what works for you, and do more of that. I think that is like the lesson. I mean, if we were drilling everything down to it, I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yes. And don't wait for inspiration. If you work, the inspiration will come.
One of the things that we were speaking about when we were on the panel, and I remember it because it was also something we agreed about, it not just when you write the end, start something new, but at night, kind of give yourself a cliffhanger.
Yes.
To come back to the next day. So will you explain that a little bit more?
This is something I got from Walter Gibson. Again,
Okay.
the author of The Shadows. He would stop before he was finished. He would know what the next scene would be, or the next paragraph, or sometimes only the next sentence. But he wouldn't write it. He'd stop there, so he would know what happened. I mean, I just left a character hanging on a cliff, like literally hanging on a cliff today. And I'll save him later if I feel like it. Maybe I won't, but because he's kind of annoying anyway. But that I know what's happening in the next page, and so when I get up the next morning, I can just write it. Uh, Walter Gibson would sometimes stop in the middle of a sentence. He would get halfway through a sentence and be like, "Oh, I can leave that," because the physical act of sitting down and writing the next few words gets your brain into the groove, and there's less of a resistance because you're like, "Oh, I don't have to sit here thinking what I'm going to do. I already know what to write for the next 50 or 100 or 200 words, so I'll just go do that, and then maybe I'll go get a coffee." But then you find, oh, you're still writing. Oh, now I've done 500 words. Perfect. And it really, really does work.
Do,
Definitely.
do you write the end first?
It depends. With I find it depends on the genre, especially with mysteries, because you have two stories going on in mystery. You have the surface story, and then you have the story beneath.
Right.
You have the investigator's story, and you have the murderer's story. And the murder story only occasionally pokes up to intersect with the investigative story, which is what you're actually reading. But you have to know those.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes a little more thought ahead of time. Other books, not so much, like actions, thriller, that sort of thing, not so much. I tend to write into the dark, as some writers call it. I do not outline. Very few prolific authors outline. But I often know the ending, and I will write to that, because what I tend to do is, um, before I've even thought through the plot, I've thought through the character arcs. This is especially important in series where you have recurring characters. So I know where the character's starting, and I know where they end up. And then the fun is figuring out how they get from point A to point B.
Well, you know me, I'm all about the roadmap. You have to
Mm,
figure out where you're going so you can
yeah.
plan and get there. But yes,
Whatever works.
leave yourself open for the fun little adventures and the character development along the way.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
Okay.
weird things happen. I mean, I had a minor character who had like 5 lines in the whole book. It was maybe 60,000 words into this novel. Speak up and change the plot. He's like, "No, we can't do that. We have to do this." It's like, well, who are you again? It's like, and it veered off because he had a completely valid reason why the main character had to change course and totally talk this character down. And it just came out of nowhere. I was like, oh, and that's better than what I planned. So okay.
I think that's really what happens when you're really tuned in and in your zone and you make your characters real, because that's what speaks to an audience. I mean, they want real fake people talking to them.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's the characters of the thing. Their adventures are only secondary. It's really these people that you're spending time with, which is the most rewarding. So you have to have people who maybe not necessarily likable, but at least interesting. People you want to spend time with.
It always gets me because I spend enough quality time with Netflix, and I'll be watching a show and it's a really bad character and I'm like, why do I want him to get away with it?
Mm.
Oh yeah, they made him interesting. Okay. Or I'll go, are there any good people on this TV show? No. But you root for certain ones. And that's when the writer's done their job by really
Yeah.
getting you behind someone, good, bad, or whatever.
Yeah, well, like I'm reading this book that I'm researching for a new mystery series. It's going to be set in the Weimar Republic, so I'm reading a lot of novels written at that time, and I'm reading Berlin Alexanderplatz, which is considered a classic from 1920s Germany, and it's follows the adventures of this kind of loser who just got out of prison and who's bumbling through Berlin, getting drunk and meeting all these random people, and as a person, he's dull. He's not somebody I'd want to spend time with. But he meets so many interesting people, and he gets into so many different strange things. And it's such a perfect portrait of how the city was at that time that it's fascinating. And I'm willing to bumble along with him through um, Germany as it's gearing up for a big face-off between the Nazis and the communists, and we all know that the Great Depression is about to hit them, and so that's going to really spark things off. So it's interesting to follow. Yeah, as you got to make the characters compelling, and they have to be compelling to you. You can't fake it. You have to make the characters be people you want to follow through, and that will come through on the page.
Excellent. Okay, so before we do final thoughts, where can people find you? How can people connect?
Okay, a few things. I think you had on the banner the Midlist Writer
Yes, let's.
blog.
And I have. There we go.
Oh, there we go. And I'm going to put in the chat. I have this is specifically for writers, although it can apply to other creatives. The Productive Writer. It's a YouTube series that I just started, where I'm taking my 20 years of experience and putting it for free on YouTube. So lots of advice on productivity, on self-editing, how to deal with writer's block. The key to dealing with writer's block is to realize it doesn't exist. Oh, that was a spoiler alert. But anyway, and the next one's going to be on research, which I'm going to do this weekend. So a little bit of that. I'm also on Amazon, of course. I should have probably brought this up beforehand, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, and so in the recap, I'll have all of your links in there as well.
Oh, okay.
And okay, before I wrap this up, if we want people to walk away from one action item, something they can do to be more productive, what is it?
Do it every day. Find time to do it every day. There is an exercise that I do with my classes and at lectures where I say, okay, you're going to write a page just now, whether it's an existing project or whatever. You just sit down and write a page right now. And when this is over, I would suggest that people who are listening do this. Sit down and write a page. Note the time when you start, and then note the time when you end. And you'll be shocked at how quickly you got through that page. When I do it, virtually everyone does it in 15 minutes or less. So that's 15 minutes. Almost everybody has a spare 15 minutes to write. And if you got 15 minutes, you can write a page. And in a month, that's 30 pages. In a year, that's 365 pages. So do that every day. So when this is over, try it. Write a page. See how long it takes you. And don't worry about editing or anything. Just get the page down. You can edit it later.
I'm going to give a cheat. If you're listening and you're not a writer, write a blog post. Write a something.
Paint an arm.
Paint what?
An arm. Every painting needs an arm. Well, if you have a person.
Do something for 15 minutes that's going to be focusing on your goals, what you want to be doing. Yes, paint an arm, draw half a face, whatever it is. Spend some time and do something in 15 minutes. And I agree. I think see how far you can get. And
practice a tricky chord progression or something like that. Just whatever it is.
Okay. So let us know in the comments how you're going to spend your 15 minutes. What is the productive thing you're going to do? So we want to know. Look for Sean and look for me. You can find me at thedebmethod.com, and I'm at the Deb Method everywhere. And you're at Writer Sean, right?
Yes, Writer Sean is for Facebook and Twitter, although I'm not much on Twitter. Facebook and also Instagram, which has my travel photos, so it's a bit quiet over there at the moment. So.
But if you want to explore something without leaving your home, they can jump into your pictures and let their imaginations run wild.
Yeah, you'll see from my latest trip to Cairo at the beginning of the year, Cairo and down to Karnak and Valley of the Kings. So there's a bunch of photos up there. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sean,
Well,
for
thank you. This
sharing
was
your
great.
tips
And
on
I love your
productivity.
method. You guys have you have a lot of really good advice for getting people going, which is the important thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for staying up late and joining us tonight. And
I was
everybody,
happy to do it. Yeah.
whether you're listening to it live or to the replay, let us know your tips for productivity in the comments. Let us know what you're working on so we can cheer you on. Jump on over to the Right On Online Facebook group if you want. Follow me, follow Sean. If you need some cheerleading, well, okay, when you need cheerleading, find me.
Listen to
I'll be
her.
happy to give you like the thumbs up. And join us every week for Goal Chat, 7 p.m. Pacific, Sunday nights on Twitter. And we'll be back next week at 4 o'clock on the Mango Facebook page for next week's Goal Chat Live. And in the meantime, have a great, productive, and healthy and happy week, everyone. Thanks again, Sean.
Have a good one.